Welcome to episode 11 of the Imperial Tides podcast. I'm your host, Holden, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Simone. How are you doing today, Simone?
Uh, Doing good.
It's good. It's good. We just finished reading one of Shakespeare's kind of lesser-known, more minor works, one of his works of poetry, the first one we've done on the channel. It's called a little thing called Venus and Adonis, which is based off of the famous Roman myth and it's the same plot basically. It's essentially about a guy named Adonis. He's a hunter. He's immortal. He lives on Earth, of course, and Venus, the Roman goddess of love, falls in love with him because he's so beautiful. Venus tries to seduce him, Adonis, but fails at first until she pretends to faint and Adonis gets tricked into sleeping with her. He chastises her about the differences between love and lust in this particular play, and then leaves her to hunt wild boar because he's a hunter and he loves hunting more than he loves women and sex and all that. Even he cares more about just the hunt and providing for his, I guess, other biological needs besides sexuality and whatnot. And then Venus has a vision that a boar will kill him while he's hunting and tries to stop him from leaving, but he decides to go anyway. And then a day later, she finds him dead in the woods, killed by a boar, just like she envisioned he would, and his blood stains some flowers or something. There's also a horse who breaks away from Adonis to run off with a mare, and the two of them are like a happy little horse couple or something. It's really, it's not much to this play. It's pretty straightforward. And so, yeah, Simone, what would you rate it and why? If you had to rate the poem, with a 10 being like the most, I guess, like the best thing ever written, and like a 1 being just something that doesn't do anything for you at all.
I think I don't know if it's okay if I rate it 6.5. I guess that yeah, this one is different from other Shakespeare play, or it's a different. Let's like I say, it's a minor Shakespeare work, so this one is it's so different from the previous works that we comment or we've seen so far. I guess that this one I don't know, I'm not able to connect as much as we did in the previous analysis that we did. So just like I said, this one is too straightforward. So I think that's what I didn't like about it, I guess.
Yeah, Shakespeare, he does a lot of what he does, he takes from classical sources, right? So he'll take from literature, he'll take from history, especially with his histories, his plays, Richard II and Henry VIII and all of those. And, even Macbeth is based off of history, and even Hamlet, to a certain extent, is based off of other things. All these stories, they come from somewhere. He kind of takes them all from different sources and adapts them, but makes them his own through language and through refinement of the dramatic elements and all that. So to take an old Roman myth, an ancient Roman myth, and make it his own and put his own special spin on it, it's actually very in tune with Shakespeare's modum operandi, or operandus, as like an artist. It's what he does. It's part of his method, his style. And yet this one, for some reason, it feels like it's a lot closer to the original myth than it is to anything original on his part, because I think whereas with something like Hamlet or rather Macbeth, where he kind of takes something from history but then changes all the facts and makes it his own thing and focuses more on the dramatic structure, because this is a poem, there isn't really much dramatic structure to it. There's not as much anyway. There's a narrative, but it's very loose, and the emphasis is mostly on the language and how the language comes together, how it sounds, when you when you put it all together through the iambic pentameter, that specific poem rhyme scheme and everything, which I'm not overly familiar with or about, but it seems that that aspect of it is much more important than anything else. The narrative is sort of just wrapped around that structure, the iambic pentameter, and and that's really it. I don't know. It's just a bunch of lines and stanzas about very basic subject matter, very basic narrative. Personally, for me, I would also give it a 6.5 out of 10. I just don't think there's enough scope to it. It's too simple, And it feels very much like a minor work within the overall canon, and it didn't really do anything for me, honestly. It feels very dated. I feel like people back then would have liked this, but I don't know if there's much of an appeal now. I don't know if there's much to really get out of it. It's not as universal as some of his other stuff. It's definitely not Shakespeare at his best, but I guess you can't win them all. Um, but now let me ask you this: what do you think the best thing about this poem is? What's its best aspect?
Um, for me, I guess the idea that we get from here about the portrayal of the characters, that their story. I guess that was make this work. I guess, for example, Adonis for he didn't he for he resists the temptation that Venus giving him. I guess that this the refusal, I guess, and then into some part she submits into it, and then he then leaves again, and then some. That's what is make this thing work. I guess that, yeah. I don't know.
And then what's the worst thing about it?
Yeah, the worst thing about it, I guess that, I don't know. It doesn't seems like it doesn't sounds like Venus at all, because what I know about Venus is she's the goddess of love and beauty, but it seems like in some ways she's portrayed in a way that she a bit of the temptation, I guess.
Venus. Well, this is the myth that explains why love kind of hurts, right? Because Venus this is before anything was bad. Basically, this is how the Romans or the Greeks or whoever kind of explained, because they would use mythology to kind of explain certain natural phenomena and all that in the world around them, in the universe, and the forces that be, nature and all that. So this was their explanation for why love kind of is tough, and why we struggle so much with sexuality and relations and everything. Why we get nervous, why we doubt, why we have anxiety when we see our crush walking down the hall or whatever. That all comes from this, because Venus felt this. And this was the first time that she ever felt it, and it was the only time she ever felt it, because after this, she refused to get hurt and to be vulnerable like this again, because Adonis's death hurt her. Adonis's rejection of her, and then his death hurt her so much that she basically cursed humanity, or she made it so that now forever all of us are screwed. Now we all kind of feel this anxiety and this dread and stuff that comes with love, or attraction and all that. That's what this myth explains, and Shakespeare takes that and he basically just retells it. I think, I don't know. That's kind of the problems, that he doesn't seem to refine it too much. He doesn't seem to do anything special with the myth itself. It just kind of seems to tell it again. And that's the main thing I don't like about. That's the worst thing about this poem for me, is that he doesn't put his own spin on it. There's no Shakespearean twist to any of this. It's very basic. It's very it's what you would expect Shakespeare to. It's what people, I think, imagine Shakespeare to be. It's like the negative stereotype of Shakespeare. That it's all this high flown, over dramatic, whatever, musing on love, and it's over dramatic, and it's just this constant. It never ends. It goes on for like fucking 8 years. It's just the same thing over and over again, just like 10 pages of somebody crying about somebody else dying, or somebody being mad that someone else doesn't want to sleep with them. And it's like the whole thing basically. That's all this is. It seems like a one part of something that should be I don't know. It feels like he didn't really do anything with it. This isn't even. It's not a complete work in and of itself. It's like a piece of something this is it. But you need this, and then you need something like with the perfect shake. In order to make it like a full thing on its own, you would need to have this very basic love story, but then you would also need to incorporate into. You need to add into that. You need to mix in, psychological analysis. You need to mix in, an aspect of philosophy. I mean, there's a little bit of philosophy here, but again, it's very rudimentary. It's very basic. It's taking us back to the fundamentals, to Plato and maybe a little bit of Aristotle, some Socrates, just very basic shit that we've already kind of figured out. It's like this is kind of like a building block thing. It feels like a very unfinished work. It's something that I don't know. It feels like something that just that should have been better, would have been better kept in the sketchbook or whatever, within in the original, in Shakespeare's whatever notebook he wrote it in, or whatever, on the piece of paper he wrote it on. I don't think it doesn't right now. It just, in its state, it doesn't seem like anything, much of anything. It doesn't seem publishable. If I was Shakespeare's publisher back in the day, I probably wouldn't have told him to. I probably would have told him to just forget about this one. There's really nothing to it. And maybe it's just me, but personally, I didn't really like reading it that much either, or listening to it read. Um, it doesn't even sound that good to me, is the thing. Like, it doesn't even, none of the aspects of it really, none of its traits really appeal to me. It doesn't sound good. The story isn't really interesting. The characters aren't really likable. There's really nothing to it. You can't even really talk about characterization or anything, because these people aren't really people. They're symbols. They're icons. One represents love, and the other represents why love is the way it is now. They serve their purpose within this very basic narrative, and that's fine. But I don't know. It just doesn't really do anything for me, and it dates this story, the work, incredibly. It's very dated. It's very old. It didn't last. It didn't survive into today. Because there's nothing universal about it, really. Or maybe there is something universal about it, but it's just not. It's not universal enough, if that makes sense. And especially not for Shakespeare. And maybe that's the problem too. Is with Shakespeare. It's like you go off something like Hamlet or Macbeth, or As You Like It, or something really good to this, and this might not even have been intended to be this big work or anything, but it just doesn't feel like much. And that's why I think it's been forgotten over time anyway. For me, that's my personal take on it. But let me ask you this: Do you think, Simone? Do you think do you feel like you did you feel anything, or learn anything special from listening to this and reading it? Did it inspire any interesting thoughts or feelings or ideas in you, as you went along, or after, when you reflected on it, maybe?
I don't know. I think just to say, it's very basic. I guess that it all comes up. It just talk about all the common or commonsensical things. I guess that it's the fundamentals, I guess, of things. It doesn't give you the sense of more deeper analysis. I guess that you need to. I guess I need to go deeper into it, but I don't know. It's not that much at all. That when I get into it, I'm trying to get into. I'm trying to get into to find its meaning, or something that maybe there's something more about this, but in the end I didn't find anything at all that as inspiring as other Shakespearean works. So yeah, I don't know. It's very basic for me. So I thought I'm having a hard time earlier that I'm thinking of that there's something more into it, but I failed to do that. I guess that in the first place it's basic, so maybe I didn't have to exert that much effort to dig in deeper. So that
Do you think it's necessarily a bad thing for let's think about this more broadly. How about this? Do you think it's a bad thing for a story to be simple? Do you think it's necessarily like that'll ruin the story if it's a little too basic, if it's a little too simple? Is that necessarily inherently a bad thing in and of itself, storytelling wise?
uh, I think it depends on the audience that you wanted to tell your story or to deliver your story. I guess that there are some stories that need to be complex to attract the audience that you wanted, and your target market, I guess. So this one is very basic. So maybe this one is for that will appeal to some beginners or something. That's how I see this.
What kind of story needs to be told more complexly?
For example, the other Shakespearean work, for example, the story of Hamlet or story of Macbeth. I guess that there's something into it. I guess that there's something deeper that in the end of the day, it's the message that they're trying to portray is also a common or very basic one, I guess, that it will comes up with the basic human understanding about ourselves. But the fact that we neglect those things, or somehow that we neglect those things, that we cannot get into those story by ourselves. That we can't realize it by just talking to ourselves or introspection in ourselves. There's something, those works will is essential for us to trigger the thoughts that we need to, or the realizations that we need to as a human being to improve ourselves.
So because those more complicated stories are, because those the story, the thing that they're trying to tell is more complicated in that, like, you're really breaking down, for example, in Macbeth, like what evil is, where, not necessarily where it comes from, but what evil can cause, and bring about. And then whereas with Hamlet, it's like where evil comes from, and what the cycle is all, where what the cycle consists of, and how evil begets evil, and how, more people, all of that, those are more complicated issues, those are more complicated subjects, and so they require more complex stories and structures in order to get the point across, or to cover all the aspects of whatever that subject may be. Whereas with this, it's more basic. It's just the message is, if there is a message at all, or if Shakespeare's trying to say something particular with it, it's very basic. It's very rudimentary. It's very fundamental. But is the fact that something's fundamental, is a simple story bad? Is it bad for a story to be too simple? Or can there be simple stories that are good? Maybe not too simple, but just simple in general. Like, what are the benefits of simple storytelling to you, do you think, Simone?
Um, I think the importance of simple storytelling. Maybe it's a something that a good introduction for us that, for example, in the first place, it's our first time to explore literature. We need to get into the simple one before we get into the complex one. So understand the simple. I think it's just a stepping stone for a greater understanding or outlook for something better. So maybe it will trigger us to look for something better.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe the reason why this one's so simple is because I don't know. I think maybe Shakespeare was tapping into what was popular at the time, maybe, and why stories like this were popular at the time. Maybe it has to do with, maybe we got to think about the historical context in this case for this particular poem. Maybe people back then, they were a much more repressed sexually. It wasn't a good, the Christian church, whatever. Not the Christian church, but Christianity and religion and everything. It told you not to do that. They would tell you that overt sexuality was a sin, and so everyone had to button themselves up. And so that made you repressed. Maybe for the people of his time, Shakespeare's time, this was the one way you could express your sexuality, which is natural. It's innate in us. It's just who we are. It's not necessarily a bad thing to want to have, sex with a member of the opposite sex, or even, with the same sex, or whatever, however much that's expanded outwards, over the years. It's not a bad thing to want that. It's just, we're human beings, we're animals, is what it is. But back in the day, back in Shakespeare's time, they would tell you that it was bad. Certain groups and everything, and since religion was so dominant back then, and so dominant, and so persecutive, it's so judgmental, so fire and brimstone, really, just everything was very fatalistic. If you do one bad thing, you're kind of screwed, you're kind of fucked, you're gonna go straight to hell. I feel like that this poem kind of represents that. It kind of captures that aspect of that kind of way of thinking about human sexuality perfectly, because in a way, you could think of it. You could think of Adonis getting killed by the boar, as punishment, as what he gets as retribution for having crossed to the line of human sexuality or whatever, by giving into the erotic, I suppose, by giving into temptation. Even having sex with Venus once was enough to curse him or whatever, or to to damn him, to screw him over for life. That was it. That was over. One time and you're done. You tempt yourself once and that's it. And maybe this is supposed to be a cautionary tale. Maybe Shakespeare's trying to be didactic or morally, guiding through this. Maybe that's one way of looking at it. Maybe he's trying to do that. Maybe it's both. Maybe he's trying to do that, and then maybe he's trying to be poetic about it and make the reader find some solace in it. Because again, maybe this is just the one kind of outlet they have, the one vehicle they had back in the day through which to express their sexuality and to kind of explore it and to ponder it a little more. Because otherwise, in everyday life, maybe people would just slap them on the wrist and say, no, bad, don't do that, don't think about it at all. That's impure. You're going to go to hell for doing that. That's a sin, whatever. Even thinking about it is bad. All that, that oppressiveness, that repressive aspect of the society at the time, and of the overarching, the dominating culture and everything that dominated the culture. This was probably maybe by being poetic about it. The poeticism is a pretense. It's an excuse. It doesn't really matter as much as just the fact that it gives you a platform through which to talk about this kind of stuff, with and on. And maybe we're honoring that today by talking about it in the podcast. But do you have any thoughts regarding that? Do you think it was just a way for Shakespeare to kind of reflect on human sexuality? This was the one place that he could do that, and where other people could do that. Do you think maybe that's why it was popular and why he decided to write it in the first place?
Yeah, I guess this one will sounds like a practice for him to explore his thought. Maybe he write this one on his pre-rhyme. I guess that it. Yeah, I don't know if this one is supposed to be published at all or something. I guess this one it's just for example he just come up with a thought and then he just write it to explain to be able to understand his own thoughts or something. That it really sounds like that way for me. That yeah, it's just his own introspection or something that something that symbolize his somehow a practice, I guess. That's how it sounds for me.
So this is maybe like one of the a bad example of introspection, in the sense that it's so personal to him that he's probably, very few people would be interested in it but him, because he wrote it. He might have written it just for himself. He might have just done it as a way to give himself a space within writing to think about these things and to practice, to kind of cut his teeth a little bit, and to work on those powers of analysis that are so masterfully rendered in all of his other works and everything, that are clearly demonstrated in things like his major plays and all that. But you think this one might have just been something that he did on his own, a little exercise, just a little secondary, supplementary work, just something to do as a bit of a break, to give himself some time away from the major things. And then maybe when he finished it, he might have refined it a little bit, polished it, and then published it. And then people liked it because that was what was popular at the time. So it kind of all worked out. But today there isn't really much use for it now, because it's hundreds of years later, and it was something that he didn't really it wasn't meant to be a big deal anyway. So it isn't a big deal now, and it's kind of been forgotten. Do you think that might be what happened?
Yeah, exactly. I guess that it's some sort of a practice for him, but it's also he thinks about it that it will also appeals to the people by those times. So I don't know. That's we could say that it's just his a practice for him or something that he makes for himself, but he then realizes that it could appeal to his audiences. So by that time, so he decided to polish some parts of it and then publish it.
Yeah, probably get paid. That's probably the more practical, pragmatic aspect of life as a writer. You got to make some money. You got to do something. So you probably put it out there to make maybe a little money. Maybe buy some new furniture or something. I don't know. What he got up to? What he used? Anyway. Fuck, man. I don't really know what to say about this one. Honestly, it's kind of tough to talk about. How about this? Do you think it is as simple as we're kind of making it out to be, or as it seems on the surface, or is there a complexity to it that we just can't really fully appreciate? Do you think?
Uh, I think this one will appeal to the older generation. I guess that I don't know. We're just new to this to exposure to Shakespeare, but this one is just far from our expectations. I guess that it if we're going to compare it to his other work, this one is very far from a Shakespeare. It doesn't sound as a Shakespearean work at all because it sounds Shakespeare because of the lines that the poem itself, the way it's written, but the story itself, it's not portrayed in a way that Shakespeare did in his other other works. So that's how it sounds for me. That yeah, that maybe we can get more into it if we're gonna understand or maybe get into some materials or something. But this one for the period during this period, I guess that this one doesn't appeal at all to me, or it seems that it doesn't also appeals to you.
Did the language though? Did it emotionally resonate with you at any point? Did you feel any sort of feeling of like, I don't know, elation while you listened to it? Did anything like that at all, or did it not connect?
To be honest, it didn't connect. It's different from the lines that I expected to. For example, the plays that we have seen so far. That when I hear some of the lines, for example, the soliloquy of Hamlet and then Macbeth, I think it really resonates to me. But this one, it doesn't.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Do you think Shakespeare through this poem? Do you think he's trying to tell us that lust is evil? Is that the main point of this at the end of the day? That lust is a bad thing, that you shouldn't give into it. Is he saying that it's evil, or is he non-judgmental? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I didn't see much about the portrayal about lust in this one. Um,
Why
but
not?
we can say that it's lust is an evil thing because Adonis just once given to lust and then in the end he dies. So maybe it's a warning for us. I guess that maybe we shouldn't get into this thing. So the only thing that we will end up when we surrender these things is only a bad thing or something. That's how it seems to me that he just did it once and then in the end he dies. So
Right.
maybe that's how he portrays it. We can say that it wasn't bad or last, but in the portrayal, I guess that he just he just did it once and then he died. So for me, it seems like it that way that last is really evil.
Right. Yeah. That seems to be what he's trying to portray for me as well. But why do you think why do you think people just in general, not even just Shakespeare, but why do you think people in general attribute lustfulness to like to sin? Why do they think that lust? Why do we just collectively as a species? Why do we tend to think that that lust is an inherently bad thing? Is that just is it because we can't control it? Is it our lack of control over one of our primitive biological functions that makes us assume that it's immorality, or is it something more? Is it this need to be a little more civilized? Like why is that? Why? Let's really try to get to the bottom of this issue. It's hard because obviously it's like it's such a fundamental part of everything, but maybe that's why it's important to ask about the fundamental things, because they're things that we take for granted. They're things that we can't really fully comprehend. And so maybe to Shakespeare through this poem, he's trying to shave everything off. He's trying to get rid of everything else. There's no distractions or anything. There's no real story. It's just we're going to focus on the issue of lust and human sexuality. So Simone, why do you think why do you think we think of lust as a bad thing? Why do we think of it as a problem? Sexual temptation and all that.
because we see that it in the end of the day that it will brought harm to us. I guess that it made us a different kind of human. I guess it really enables us to do evil because in the portrayal that it just makes him bad. I guess that when you do these things, we believe or we see that when you do this, we give into the temptations or lust. It will only brought harm to us. So maybe and also it will. We don't have control about these things. So it's against. We see it when we see things that we didn't have control or make us act the way that we shouldn't be or given in the living more or what we call morally acceptable. um it will made us against those things. This will enables us to be evil, I guess. That so when we didn't get into the standard that we didn't follow to the standard that given by the society, we think that it's immoral. So it seems like, yeah.
But so the lack of control that we have over it means that it's easier for that kind of thing for lust and sexuality to be abused. You know, maybe that's the problem, is that other people can kind of take advantage of that for us. We can screw each other over through lust, you know, just like how we can screw each other over through things like anger and jealousy and bitterness and resentment and the need for revenge. You know, this time Shakespeare's focusing on lust itself, lust. You know, the fact that Venus can control or is trying to control Adonis through lust, right, and trying to kind of keep him captive and make him, because there's a part in the poem where she points to the horse, you know, the horse who runs away from who breaks free of the, you know, the saddle or whatever of the reins of Adonis to run off with a female horse, a mare, to just and to that represents within the overall work, it represents pure, unbridled, animalistic lust, like just giving into lust altogether, not even thinking about it, just becoming a you know, not just a victim of it, but you know, a victim of it, but also just dependent upon it. You know, like how Richard II doesn't think for himself, like how Macbeth never really thinks for himself. They don't have their own wills. You know, lust takes away our autonomy, our freedom of thought, our you know, our control, self-control. So without that control, we aren't really ourselves. And Venus is trying to tell. Venus points to that horse and says that that's what she would consider to be the ideal kind of lover, right? And Adonis sees that as kind of threatening. You know, he sees that as a negative because he sees that as Venus trying to control him. Do you think that's what she was trying to do? Do you think she was trying to get to control him through lust, trying to make him sort of her like, you know, sexual slave who just does nothing but, like, you know, satisfy her sexual desire or whatever? You know, this is getting kind of, you know, weird, but like, you know what I mean, right? Like, do you think she was really trying to do that, or it was Adonis being a little too paranoid, do you think? What are your thoughts?
I guess she's the goddess of love. I guess that she wanted to be loved, but she resort into temptation just to get Adonis' attention, but Adonis didn't give in to this kind of thing in the end because he see it absurd or something that he didn't like at all. So I guess that what really Venus really wanted is love. She just resort into lust and temptation just to try to get Adonis' attention.
And what do you think personally that the horse represents? Would you agree that it's just this unbridled lustfulness, you know, the base animal need for sexual reproduction?
Yes. It was also told in the poem about the horse that it relates to lust and temptation, the animalistic instinct of us. So that's what Venus is trying to say about to Adonis, that just like the horse, he should let his desires go in the way, or something that he just let it let it be, or something that to she's comparing Adonis to the horse, that Adonis should also act like the horse, for example, that it will bring him joy at the end.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Hey, are you clicking something, by the way? I can hear a bunch of clicking over on your end.
Sorry.
You're right. Are you gonna you need to do something, or I don't know. Would you mind do you need to do so, or I don't know. Is it all right if you don't do that as much while we record? Just because it's picking up on the audio, everybody could hear it. Is that okay?
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just making sure that But anyway, what were we talking about? Lost or something. That's like the whole thing. Pretty much is not really anything else to say. Uh, well, the horse it runs away from Adonis when it breaks free of the reins and everything. That could represent the horse breaking away from like a person leaving their role in society, leaving civilization, because that horse played a role in the civilization of the time. With regard to Adonis, he has a job to do. The horse, he takes Adonis everywhere he goes. He helps him hunt and everything. He's there for transportation. And so when he breaks free of the reins, he's essentially returning to his nature, I guess, and running off with the female mare to do what horses and animals do, which is just eat, sleep, drink, reproduce, go to the bathroom. That's really it. That's it. That's it. That's like all they do, and so it's a more natural, more primitive, more organic, whatever fundamental way of living. And through breaking the breaking of the reins, it represents a breaking from society, from civilization, from the court, perhaps, and an escape and exit into the natural life, the country, perhaps, harkening back to themes addressed in As You Like It, and perhaps a Midsummer Night's Dream. Sorry. Do you see any connection to a Midsummer Night's Dream? By the way, because both that play and this poem cover erotic desire, kind of the longing, human sexuality, kind of the shortcomings of it, how we're kind of victims to it at times, how easy it is for it to control us. What are your do you see any connections there? Any similarities? Any differences between Venus and Adonis and A Midsummer Night's Dream?
Yes, we can say that it's connected because it's also talk about the last, but this one, I think it has a different takes on this matter. For example, the Midsummer Nights, I guess that it's focused more that they're not conscious about these things. This just happened naturally, or something that it was portrayed that way. That when they lose the ability, when the juice of the flower works, and then it seems like they already forgot what who they are, or it's something that just comes naturally, that it goes naturally. And in the portrayal about this Venus and Adonis, it seems that Adonis is still is still in his consciousness, that he still knows what is wrong from right, or what is his against his moral values, or and what is not.
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Um, let's see. How about this? What do you think a person can do to prevent themselves from giving into lust? How can a person use their morals to overcome the temptations of lust and be their own person and think for themselves and everything? What's the solution to that?
Um, just what it portray on the Venus and Adonis, that we should think of something something better may happen, or the consequences of our actions. Maybe we should consider that if we give into this thing, there might be something that will brought it it will brought harm to us, or it will not be worth it to do this one because for example in the portrayal I guess that he just did it once and then he's back up. I guess that we shouldn't give into lust because it will do us harm. So maybe we should we should think about it that every action that we did, we should think twice about it before doing it. We should be knowledgeable about the consequences that would happen to it when we did it.
Right. Yeah. Hindsight and all that. So let me ask you this now. Would you agree with the Platonic? This is something that the ancient Greek philosopher Plato came up with. Would you agree with the Platonic notion that love is a search for beauty? What are your thoughts?
Uh, I don't know if this maybe in this part that Venus is searching for beauty, but I think that I don't agree that love is search for beauty. I guess that love is something that you're search for to be to feel that you're complete. I guess that uh, it's something that I don't know if we consider that the finding someone or somebody that will complete us as beauty.
So, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it seems like in today's reality, we did way back then that they're into beauty. They treat things as beauty. They treat as beauty as one of the highest things that you could you could get. But in today's reality, I guess that we can say that it's beauty for them. But I guess that this one, the meaning, searching into meaning for ourselves or making to know more about ourselves. I don't know if we consider this a beauty by today's reality.
So, so these days, you think like most people, or at least you, or the common person, I guess, would want to to date someone who isn't just a 10 in looks and then like a 1 in personality. Someone who who's really hot but like doesn't have any hobbies or interests or anything. Just kind of likes to sit around and do nothing all day. That's not enough. You need to have an actual connection with them. They need to be interesting. They need to be funny or charming, or they need to have charisma or whatever. They can't just be all looks. They can't just be all face, all hair, all body, whatever. There's got to be something deeper to it than that. There's got to be an emotional connection. Would you agree with that or not?
Yeah, I agree with that idea, but in today's reality, we can say that also people are looking for beauty. For example, the dating applications or the way people date by now, that it was based on the physical aspects, but there's also a lot of people that didn't consider these things. They consider more on the connection that love will brought to them. So it still depends upon you, but I guess that we should more focus on the connection that we're going to make because it seems that when we focus on those things, it's a relationship will be more successful rather than when we base things on the physical aspects of the person that we're looking for.
Physical aspects. And do you think that's something that's just innate to inherent to human nature? Do you think we'll ever be able to move past this need for beauty or this more superficial kind of sexual desire for other people or whatever? Do you think that'll ever go away? Because I mean, models and stuff, fashion and all that, it's all been a part of society for a really long time now. It's been a big part of our culture, and that's why Hollywood's so full of, it's why the actors and actresses and everybody, not just in Hollywood, but in movies and stuff, they're always, they're usually pretty attractive for the most part. I mean, like that's the thing, it's like you don't want to just see regular everyday people on the screen. You want to see, idealized, beautiful people, So do you think there'll ever come a time where we move on from that as a species, or do you think it's just too it's just part of our animalistic kind of biological fundamental nature, and it's not something that we'll ever be able to part with.
I don't think that we can part with this thing. I guess, for example, it's like you say, it exists from the beginning of human history, so until now. So I guess through the human evolution, these things get into us. I guess that, for example, we consider these things it's much enormous by this time. I don't know what's the right term to use for that. For example, it's much exaggerated in today's reality rather than from the past. So maybe I don't think that we can get in the part with this idea, because in the end of the day, that's what to say that we have this animalistic instinct that we can trick our genes that much. Some people can trick it, but the most of the population, I guess that no, we can control this uh, certain biological features of us, or the genetics or something.
So, so yeah, so it'd be more commonplace or like widespread. Is that the word you were looking for earlier? Into today as opposed to in the past? Commonplace, widespread, maybe.
Yes, I guess that in today's reality, it's much more widespread, because in in the previous history, from by this time that it was written, this play is written, only a few number of people, I guess, that have the access to this thing. So now everyone can, in today's reality, everyone can have the access to this. So maybe it's um, much more spread by now. I guess that it's existing everywhere.
Okay. Yeah. Um. Hmm. Huh. I don't know. So how about this? Let me ask you this. This will be an interesting one. Let's say 100 years from now, scientists invent some sort of device or some sort of surgical procedure that will allow that would let a person get rid of their need for the human lust. They'll get rid of their need for they'll know if they get this surgery, they're not going to be they will no longer be sexually attracted to anything at all. They'll be completely asexual, and they can focus more on logic and the more intellectual matters, and whatever, learning and all. They don't have to think about the physical at all or anything. Do you think that would be a good thing or a bad thing? And also, would you get that procedure done or not? What are your thoughts?
For me, it's obviously a bad thing, and I will not get into these things, because the human emotions is something that we cannot control. It's something we can control it at times, but it's something that we don't have control of most of the times. Um, somehow it causes up some negative feelings, or something that it hinders us to be more productive as human beings. But it's also essential for us to appreciate things, that this is the lustful desire, I guess, that in some religions, or some moral things, that we can say that it's a bad thing, but it's also important for us to grow as an individual. Like, I guess we can appreciate things without the bad. I guess that we can't have this distinction. We cannot say what is good or bad if we don't have a bad one. So that's yeah.
So you think we need the bad in order to appreciate the good, and that we need emotions in order to really fully experience life. Without emotions, life does not mean as much, and so there's not as much of a point. Um, but then on the other hand, what's necessarily wrong with becoming more logical? Science and technology are what bring on progress. Progress could not exist without science and technology. And if 100 years from now there is a technology that will allow us to become more productive, to make ourselves more productive, why wouldn't we take that opportunity? Why wouldn't we go through with that and allow ourselves to make more progress in science and technology, so that maybe one day we can get off, this planet and go to, and start doing space, all the sci-fi stuff, space exploration, terraforming of other planets, colonization of other planets, and get off of Earth before it blows up or whatever, before the sun destroys us all and everything. Isn't it? Wouldn't that be enough to justify getting rid of our lust, which is a bad thing anyway, which keeps us kind of prisoner at some points anyway? Isn't that worth just getting rid of? Isn't that a good price to pay? Isn't that enough? Wouldn't that justify going through with such an operation as that? What's wrong with the operation anyway? I mean, it sounds perfectly valid from that perspective.
Uh, yeah, it has more it has more positive things that it will enables us, but I guess that it will also leave it will I think it seems like that we're no longer human, I guess, when we remove our emotions or this such thing as the feeling of lust or uh, allurement to beauty. I guess that it doesn't sound human at all. It's important that for us to think about these things that for the betterment of the future, but uh, it's something that it will also we can say that it's good because that it's only the thing that it only wanted is to bring the good in us or to make us more productive to search more things to for the future of humanity. But I don't know if it's this it's some in some points I guess it's not morally or some in the religious aspect or the moral values of the people will not agree with these things because it's the human emotions are also important to grow as an individual. Oh yeah, the logics are important, but it that we cannot. I think that we cannot come up or end up thinking about the logics without our emotions. So yeah.
Okay. And hmm. What So you think that lust is just it's a necessary evil. It's something we have to deal with. It's a cross we're always going to have to bear because the good aspects of the positive aspects of emotion outweigh the negative, the bad would, and among those negative aspects would include lust. You think it's worth it to be able to be human still, but lust is just it's whatever, you got to deal with it. But we can deal. It's better to deal with it than it is to just get rid of it altogether. To make peace with it, to try to overcome it, try to understand it, and then try to move past it or whatever, as opposed to getting rid of it altogether. You think that's I don't know, too extreme a solution perhaps. But let me ask you this. Well, hold on a second. Lust, Well, let me ask you this: why do you think that we are afraid of letting go of our emotions just because we are human? Because we see everything, we see the world through our emotions, and that's just kind of they're such a fundamental part of what we are. Do you think it really matters at the end of the day, objectively speaking? Like, do you think the universe really cares if we're emotional or not? Like, if we get rid of them, does life really lose its meaning, or is that just something that we think is going to happen because or whatever? Is that just our idea of it because that's the way we feel about it, just because that's who we are and that's how we see things because we are emotional beings? What are your thoughts?
We can say that the universe that doesn't care at all if we have our emotion or not, but we are the ones who live. I guess that we is the individual. We as an individual, we live our lives that we cannot be able to live our lives the way it is or the challenge. We cannot face the challenges of life without emotions. that I don't know that it's uh, objectively thinking that without emotions we can be more as a human being, but I don't know that we cannot. To be honest, that we cannot. We cannot get this idea of objectivity without without the fundamental of our emotions or something. It because all these things are all this philosophy comes with our emotions. We get into this because we have the ability to think and to control our emotion or to think about our emotion, I guess.
And emotions are something that, let's say, like pure logic and pure science can't completely account for, maybe. So they are essential because they are kind of like, in a balanced life, they are kind of the half of, it's like half logic, half emotion. That's just how we're made up. That's our biological, psychological makeup as a species, and that's just the way it is. And we got to kind of live with it. And some people are more science savvy because they're born with more, they have more logic, than they do emotion, and other people have more emotion than they do logic. But for the most part, everybody's kind of balanced. So it's just, you think it's too fundamental a part of us to really do away with, and I would agree. And I mean, I would like to try to understand our emotions a bit more, and you can through science, of course, through neuroscience and all that, but and psychology to a certain extent, to all of that. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't know. It's still something that eludes us. It's still one of those big mysteries, and I think life needs mysteries. I think we as human beings, we are problem solvers, and we need problems to solve. And so that's one of them, is the problem of our emotions, the mystery. It's like maybe we'll never really know about it, or maybe we'll know about it in the next 100 years or so. Who knows? Who knows what the future has in store for us? I say that a lot, but it's true. I say it a lot because it's always true. It's just as true as the last time I said it today, but. Yeah, I don't know. This one wasn't very good. I hope the conversation didn't suffer too much because of it, but I got to be honest, I kind of want to stop talking about it. There's not really much more we can say. I'll give you time now, though, Simone. Is there anything you want to add before we move on to the Would You Rather and close this episode off?
I don't know that. What should I talk about more or tell about the poem that we just read or examined? I hope that this episode didn't suffer that much because of it. So let's continue on the would you rather questions.
Okay, so how about this? Would you rather be the first person to explore a planet, or would you rather be the inventor of a drug that cures a deadly disease? You want some time? You want some time to think about it? Because I'll go first if you want.
Yeah, you should. You can go first.
I was just gonna say I would rather be the first person to explore a planet, just because you know there's this thing. If you've ever seen this video on YouTube, it's someone did a CG rendering of what it would look like. So they recreated what it would look like. If you were to fall into one of the gas planets, Neptune. If you it would take you years to fall from, if you dropped yourself, like, okay, if you fell from the bottom of, like, the top of the planet of Neptune to the bottom of Neptune, it would take you like it would take you years, I'm pretty sure. Let me see if I can look that up, because it's a gas planet, so it's there's nothing solid there. You would just fall through it. It's these videos that, yeah, they're called V101 Science. It shows you what would happen if you what would you see if you fell into Neptune, into Uranus, into Saturn. All these gas planets. It's basically, and it would take you like years and years to do it, and so it's just pretty interesting. I would want to see what that would be like to actually do. I know it would kill you, but in this hypothetical, I would be willing to do that. That would, to me, that would be more interesting than curing some disease or something. I don't know. Even though that one would probably be more like beneficial to society. I would probably pick the stupid, just like let me just fall through Neptune and see what happens, basically. So you can go ahead and you can answer now, by the way, if you have your answer.
I would like to explore the planet, but maybe I'll go with the drug. Inventing a drug to cure a disease. It goes with a responsibility when you get into drugs, but when you invented a drug that will cure a certain disease or end something, or for example, a drug for COVID, I guess it could bring pain to me, but it's good that you can help people, but it's hard to handle the things that will fall into you or something the obligation that will turn up to you. So maybe I can consider also the going into the planet. Maybe it's okay that we can help some cure the disease or end something bad that is happening to the world, but this also might end you as well. So maybe I don't know what should I pick. Maybe I can pick the drug for the sake of helping people, but it could also bring an end to me because it's really a hard job to do or it sounds tough. So, but I can also choose the planet for something that, yeah, for example, the curiosity, just the thinking about the human curiosity.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Something a little more fun, maybe. But yeah. No. I mean, you got like so on Neptune. By the way, quick fun facts. I don't know why we're talking about Neptune now, but we were talking about Venus earlier. So fuck it. Let's just connect it to this random little tangent before we close out. Uh, Neptune actually. So here's a fun fact. Because of Neptune's thick clouds and distance from the sun, right? No light can penetrate a certain like when you go deep enough into Neptune, there's no light there. So you would be in like if you were falling through Neptune, you would be in like at that point you would be in like a pitch black, cold environment with like with wind too. There's a lot of wind, very violent winds, um, and it can get down to like it can go up to temp by Neptune the surface. You know, the being there, it can go up to above 1,000 degrees Celsius, and you know it's made out of ammonia and hydrogen sulfide cloud decks. And there are clouds, but they're made out of methane ice crystals. And the gravity on Neptune is only 14% stronger than our own on Earth. And what are some more random Neptune fun facts? Uh, it's got a liquid mantle, and it's got a superheated layer that's made out of water, methane, and ammonia ices that behaves a lot like a hot, dense fluid under immense pressures. And so, because of that, because of the pressure, uh, carbon atoms sometimes crystallize and form diamonds. And so, you know, the closer you get to Neptune's core, the more it would basically, if you're falling and you get to the center of Neptune, you have to go through a bunch of diamond rain, basically. So on the planet Neptune rains diamonds. So that's pretty neat, right? I don't know. Is that boring or I don't know. What do you think, Simone? Raining diamonds on Neptune?
Yeah, it's great. I guess this one is a great idea, a great experience here. When I was a kid, I'm thinking that that Neptune is a winter wonderland or something. I'm thinking arguing with my cousins that it would be better if we put penguins in Neptune. So maybe this one is a great realization
Oh yeah,
with my absurd idea when I'm just a kid.
yeah. It's weird how they really are. I don't know. It kind of sucks that you can't live on them because they don't have a surface, you know. But well, in like sci-fi stuff, they usually have like exploration stations and stuff set up, just kind of floating in the middle of nothing. But that's really all. It's just a big ball of gas, you know. So there's really nothing, not much to it. But it would also, by the way, it would also, if you want to know, if, like just a couple more before we close out, it's so big that it would fit 60 Earths in it. Neptune, that's how big it is. It's 60 times the size of planet Earth. It also and it orbits the sun. It takes 165 years to orbit the sun, Whereas with us, it takes 365 days. That's a year. A year on Neptune is 165 Earth years. So it takes a really long time. And it has rings, by the way, too. You're not really able to see them as clearly as you can Saturn because there's not as much to them, but they have rings, and it's about 4 times as big as Earth, by the way, or bigger as Earth than Earth, and it has a great dark spot, which is a giant storm, and Jupiter has one of those too. It's this massive storm that's always going. By the way, it's like constantly brewing. It never stops. So some parts of the world, like the Philippines, I mean, you guys have a lot of typhoons over there. Just imagine being caught in a storm that never ends. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? It also has 13 moons, by the way, Neptune. A lot of moons. And its atmosphere is made up of hydrogen, helium, and methane. And it has a surface gravity of 121. And its days are like 16 hours and 7 minutes, approximately. And its average surface temperature is below, it's negative 220 degrees Celsius. Sounds like a pretty fun place to live, wouldn't you say, Simone?
Yes, it's a bizarre place. I guess that cool. Maybe it's more on the sci-fi or the sci-fi imagination.
Yeah. Do you think this episode was a failure? Let me ask you that. Let me just be honest. Do you think we fucked this one up? Or do you think the poem's just not very good?
I think it's good that we find more something that more interesting to talk about rather than the poems.
Did you actually get anything out of this conversation though, or was it kind of a waste of time?
I got a lot of realization about these things, so it's really helpful for me. I think that every episode is also we can get into a lot of things with this episode, so I don't think that it's a waste of time.
Do you think this was the worst episode we've done though so far?
Yeah, I think regarding on the analysis, I guess that I don't know. It's far from analysis, but maybe in the conversation part, I guess this one is the most successful one.
Well, this has been episode 11 of the Imperial Tides podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't worry, they're not all like this. Thumbs up if you did, though. Anyway, comment in the comment section below. Just be civil. Subscribe for more content. We upload new videos every week. Have a nice rest of your day. Enjoy. Stay tuned for more Shakespeare. Bye for now.